Matthew Tucciarone's a cool guy, both our longtime MagFest roomie and a good friend of our show since our very first video game music podcast back in 2014. He also has many projects of his own, including a VGM YouTube channel, a podcast about kung fu movies, and a Star Trek audio drama. But on this episode, we just kick back and shoot the breeze about the year that was 2020, and the mini games we both played and listened to throughout. I'm Brian Kelly, and this is Evening at the Roost. All right, well, it's good to have you here, Matthew.
Yeah.
We're coming up on the end of 2020, so I thought it might be fun to chat a little bit about what I know, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't.
That's wild.
It feels like we're at the end of a decade, not the end of a year.
Yeah. No, that was before we started rolling, you were saying, yeah, it's been a while since we talked to each other. I was like, no, we talked in January, which is 11 months ago.
Oh my gosh, and it's bittersweet when I think back to that, because the last time we saw each other was MagFest, and it's looking like, well, MagFest is already canceled for next January, which is really sad, because that's always a highlight of our years. That's the last time we saw each other was MagFest, so hopefully in 2022. Yeah, there we go. I'm losing count of my years already. But we'll see what happens. But yeah, it's been an interesting year for games for me, because I've had a lot more time to play them than the year before. I think this is probably true for a lot of people. So I'm thinking about games I played that came out this year. I mean, the first one that jumps to me in terms of the soundtrack is Origami King. That soundtrack just blew me away, because I feel like Nintendo music in general has just been getting better and better through the whole Switch era, especially in terms of like production values.
Yeah.
And I feel like Origami King was there, like solidifying the idea that they are going to put way more budget into their soundtracks than they need to.
For real.
So it's just like the hundreds of amazing tracks in that. But like, what about you for this year? Any games stand out?
Well, let's talk about Nintendo stuff. Animal Crossing. That one, that's Animal Crossing always has great music, and it really is nice to hear, like, you know, real instruments in any kind of game soundtrack, but especially in that, where it's like just all super chill, and add new tracks to those, you know, full day of Animal Crossing YouTube compilation things.
Steven is obsessed with those. He found a website that it will automatically play whatever the correct hour is.
Oh,
so
cool.
like at 4 p.m. it'll play 4 p.m. and he plays that all the time while working. So I think he was very excited. Did you play New Horizon as well?
Oh yeah, no, actually, it's funny. Me and my wife played it a ton, obviously when it first came out, and then hadn't for a hot second, and then she started playing it again just a few days ago. So
good. I wanted to go back to it as well. It's been on and off the whole year for me. Yeah,
and everyone's like, "Where were you?"
Oh yeah.
It's been 4 months. Everything's falling apart.
Every time I get in, my only conversation with the villagers is like, oh, hey, it's been a while since I saw you. It's like, okay, next time I talk to you, you're going to say the exact same thing. So, but something I thought was interesting about the music in that game is when you first move into the island, it just plays that one song while you're getting everything like set up.
Yeah, until you get the center.
I remember the day when the center went up and the new music started playing, and I was just blown away. I'm like, whoa, it's so funky and fun, and like it just has such a cool sound to it that I don't know, it really felt like the next Animal Crossing music had kind of been stagnating ever since the original. Like every game kind of sounded like the last one, and this was the first one where I'm like, oh, this is like a whole new tone for the series. It was really, really good.
Yeah, there's that cool like synth line in a lot of the tracks with like this like neat like bass and piano playing together. It's really cool.
Still working on getting every single KK song. I have a room in my house where I hang a bunch of his artwork and put all my instruments, and so I'm trying to collect all of them, but I keep forgetting to log in on Saturday. So yeah, but I'm trying to think other games. A lot of games that I played from this year weren't actually from this year. I was
I guess this might count as it. I guess the game fully came out this year, but Hades.
Oh, yeah, I totally did play that. And, I mean, it's Darren Korb, so it's always
going to be awesome.
It's always going to be good.
But yeah, no, Hades has some sick music. And I love, it has a really cool, like, integration with the game, too. There's, like, that really cool where, like, if you're, like, going through the levels in a certain, I guess, going through the encounters in a certain level of the underworld, then like as you're going through it, then the music will get like more intense as you go on, and then whenever you finish the encounter, then it'll like everything will cut out except for the bass, so it'll just be this cool like bass line that's kind of has this weird rhythm that doesn't feel like it's like goes with anything whenever you don't hear it with the rest of the music. It's so cool.
Yeah, and like when you pause it, it'll take out certain tracks, and then it's one of the most like responsive soundtracks I've heard in a game in a while. But the quality of the music is also, I mean, Supergiant games always have incredible soundtracks. Like I think they've basically always done something interesting, and something I really admire about Darren Korb is how he keeps trying new styles. Like I feel like it would be really easy, I mean, especially with how good the original style for Bastion was, it would have been really easy to say, okay, that's my style. I found no one else is doing this. It succeeded really well. I can just keep making that and we'll be good. But instead, it feels like he just tries, I mean, there's a common thread between his games, but it feels like he tries something almost entirely new every time. And this time he decided to go with, I mean, I don't even know how to quite describe it, like Mediterranean death metal. Speaking of kind of more indie games, did you play or hear Streets of Rage 4?
Oh, I haven't. I need to do that because
that one's cool.
I love the OG. There's Streets of Rage 2 are some of my favorite soundtracks. So
yep. And Yuzo did come back for a couple tracks on this one. But a lot of what I played wasn't actually from this year. I think the Nintendo ones are the ones that really stood out to me. But what about you?
Yeah, I that's a similar thing. So actually, yeah, that's an interesting question. What's a game? Are there any games that you played this year that you had kind of been on the back burner for a long time, and you finally got around to it? Because I have a couple. Definitely.
Oh my gosh, it's been a big year of going back and trying some interesting stuff, especially with Game Pass. One that I was way overdue playing was Ori and the Blind Forest.
The original Ori and the Blind Forest.
The original Ori, yeah, not even the new one, which is Gareth Coker soundtrack. Just as beautiful as everyone said it would be. I mean, that was like, it's like playing in the best animated movie. What about you? Anything else stand out?
Honestly, the game I probably put the most time into this year is playing Rainbow Six Siege with my friends.
Really? That's really interesting.
It's a super fun. It's one of those, like, I would never play it outside of playing it with my group of friends. It's just it's a very fun game to play, Bill, but nothing stands out musically. But.
I tried to play that game, I think last year. I was looking for a new competitive multiplayer game to play, and I got so intimidated that I just had to stop, because I'm like, I don't know how this works. I was just playing it with like one other friend, and I would just walk into a room and get shot in the head, and I'm like, what was I supposed to do differently? Is that a game you've been playing for a while, or did you pick it up this year?
I'm pretty sure we picked it up this year. Maybe it was. I think it might have been on like the Steam sale at the end of last year, and we started playing it a bunch this year. But yeah, no, it is a lot of fun. It's intimidating, but it's really cool and a lot of fun to play.
Do you have a full group? So do you?
Yeah, it's me and there's like 6 or 7 of us. So as long as 5 of us are online, then we can play it.
That's really cool. That's really cool.
And that's the big thing, is because we were looking for a game where 5 people could play, because we had a lot of cool 4-player ones, but we would always have one person sitting out. So so we did. So we found that for a 5-person.
And you guys never got on the MOBA train?
It's really funny that you say that, because one of the guys in our group is very in the MOBA train. He's he's very, very good at Dota 2 and has like played it a ton. He'll stream it. He's like gone to tournaments and stuff like that, which is good for him. And I like the idea of the MOBAs, but I'm not willing to put in the time to learn how to do it well enough to play.
It takes, and I play the easy mode MOBA, which is Heroes of the Storm, the one that Blizzard put out back in, 2014. I'm playing that for like 5 years, but I tried playing a little bit of League. I played 1 match of Dota and then quit it forever, because definitely too complicated. But it is a fun experience to be able to play. I found a group of people that I play once a week with, and we play it as a 5-person team, and it is really fun. Those team-based games that you can coordinate with your friends, and actually playing that with a full stack. It's like a completely different experience from just hopping into matchmaking. So I think it is really fun when you can find that game that's right for your group. Just so long as it isn't Dota.
Yeah. Well, one that's I had listened to the soundtrack a million times, but I hadn't really got a chance to like play it. Is Jet Set Radio.
Oh wow, you're going way back in the
it's a game that Sega released a bunch of Dreamcast games on Steam.
Right.
Probably like 8 years ago at this point. But I bought Jet Set Radio, I think literally in 2014 was what my Steam thing said. I was like, I should I've made plenty of excuses to not go back and play a game. I should play this a little bit. And guess what? Jet Set Radio is cool music. Shocker.
Yes. So you hadn't played any of them? Like
I played Future a little bit at a friend's house, and I really like Future. And Future is almost impossible to play nowadays unless you literally have an original Xbox or a backwards compatible 360. That's the only way you can play it.
Wow, I didn't even think about that, because I played it back, 10 years ago, but I haven't thought about playing it since. But I was on Xbox. Man, his soundtracks are so good. Like, there's no one like Naganuma making music in games. It's just... He stands on his own. You'll love him or hate him. I know people who just can't get into his music, and I get that, but you really should. Yeah, because he has a weird magic with like rhythm and sampling that I just don't hear many other places. It's funny because if you look at his Twitter account, he is constantly responding to people telling them, no, I can't make Sega do anything. Yeah. However, Nintendo, if you're ever making a Splatoon game, I would love to work on it. So, yeah, you would be a good fit. Let's see here. Other stuff from this year. Doom 2016.
Oh, 2016
Doom,
for
the first time.
That has a wild soundtrack, too.
Played a couple levels of it, didn't get too far. It's a game that I'm like, I respect this deeply, but I don't really need to play that much of it. It's fine.
I know that feeling. This is actually this is a very controversial thing to say. So sorry to any if you like this game and you love this game to death, that is awesome. I'm so glad for you. That's kind of how I felt about Dead Cells. I played that this year as well.
Yeah, totally.
Like, everything about Dead Cells points to it would be a game that I really enjoy, and I don't dislike it. It was just a game that it's a roguelike Metroidvania, and I love both of those things. Mm-hmm. And one of my favorite games ever is Rogue Legacy, and but just something about Dead Cells just didn't click with me. And it has some cool kind of funky music too. But yeah, it was one of those. I played it for like 5 hours. I was like, you know what? I think I get it.
Yeah, I totally know what you mean. I mean, as much as I loved Hades, I kind of ran across a similar effect with that game where I'm like, if I keep playing this, I know exactly what I'm going to get out of it. Mm-hmm. And at some point you decide I'm not that interested in doing that. But it's weird because I still have a deep respect for like both Doom and Hades. Like the visuals, the music, the whole setup of the games are incredible. And yeah, Doom soundtrack. Oh man. It's talk about a soundtrack that fits the experience.
Yeah, and I love it because it's like it's basically just heavy metal without like it's like heavy metal without guitar and drums. It's weird, right? It's like it keeps feeling like you feel like it's gonna go to something else, but it doesn't go and it's good. Like it doesn't go there in a good way. Like it's not what you'd expect. Right.
I watched the GDC talk that Mick Gordon, the composer, gave. Yeah, and he went on for like an hour and a half, and he very much set that explicitly for himself, where he's like, I have to do this without guitars, and so he made his whole own custom synth effects and stuff to be able to get that dirty, grungy sound, and you don't even need guitars for that to hit hard, and it really does sound like nothing else. I have found this. Did you ever play Alien Isolation?
I didn't. I've like watched a playthrough of it, I think, back when it came out. But
Stephen and I had actually never even seen the original Alien movie.
So you should see it. If you haven't, you should see it. It rules.
Yes, for October we decided we would watch the movie and then play the game.
Cool.
Yeah, so we watched the movie. It was like, it's hard to believe that thing came out in the 70s.
Yeah. It's so ahead of its time.
Right. Like,
that movie rules.
Pretty much none of it ages. Like, I would say the one part that felt like it aged was like when they were fighting the robot. I'm like, that kind of looks like some 80s goofiness there. Yeah. But basically everything else in it doesn't age. It's crazy. And the game, oh man, I don't think I have ever played a licensed game that more accurately made you feel like you were in the thing. Mm-hmm. And so I had to stop after like an hour after encountering the alien because I'm like, this is too scary. And the music was a huge part of that. That music was terrifying and would perfectly ramp up when the alien was about to kill you. And that was way too effective emotionally for me in a dark room on the giant TV. So very cool game, though. Very cool game. Let's see here. Other interesting games.
I also played through a couple of other indie things. I played through Grease, Gris, like Gray. It's an indie game from I think last year.
Right.
I think from last year, like 2019 or maybe late 2018, but it's beautiful. Like it has this amazingly beautiful art style and this really cool like piano, like very like, I don't know what to call it, kind of like spacey kind of piano music to go with it. It reminded me a lot of Journey, but it's a 2D game. But it's really cool, and it's a big recommend for me because it's a cool indie kind of platformer whatever thing, but it's super short. It's only like I beat it in 3.5 hours, so you can play it in an afternoon and have a good time with it.
Yeah, I'm looking this up, and now I'm remembering this game now. The art style, like, I think a lot of people, once you actually Google this, you'll probably remember seeing it because it has a very striking art style that is not quite like anything else. Okay, now I did remember another game that did actually come out this year that... Okay, so I have a complicated history with this game because I have a lot of problems with it, and that's Genshin Impact. Because as someone who loves Breath of the Wild, I am deeply disturbed by this game.
This game, which is just Breath of the Wild, but with anime waifus.
Yes, or Breath of the Waifu, as some people call it. I have deep ethical problems with this, but the music is beautiful.
No, it is. There's so, and that the Mercado Brothers podcast have pointed out many of these, but there's a lot of these like crappy mobile games that make insane amounts of money, and the games don't cost anything to make, so they're like, I don't know, I guess we'll get a full orchestra and whatever for the music.
It's incredible. Like, Princess Connect is the one.
Yeah, Princess Connect is one.
They're super into. And this was the same way where I'm like, I'm ready to dismiss this game and I start playing it and I'm like, this soundtrack is like a film score. What the heck is going on? That was a pleasant surprise. I really need to go back and actually listen to the soundtrack. I only played about an hour of the game, but I was floored by just how beautiful it was. That was really cool.
Things to not think about that it's a glorified slot machine.
Oh my gosh, it's that. Okay, back to your turn. Anything else? Anything else? That's not the purview of this podcast.
Yeah. I played through Thimbleweed Park, which is I think it's Ron Gilbert. It's one of the
it's Ron Gilbert.
The guy that made the original Maniac Mansion, and it's kind of a spiritual successor to Maniac Mansion. Right. It has that same kind of art style, but a lot of more. It has like the Scum Engine style, like verbs, where like you click on the verbs and then click on the thing you want to do. But it came out in, I think, 2013 or something like that. It was a big Kickstarter.
Yeah. Right in the wave of every old game is going to be a Kickstarter again era. Yeah.
But it's really cool. I really loved it. It's a great point-and-click adventure game. It's one of those that like you could feel the age of the creator in a lot of ways. Like there were some things that felt very like I feel like a person more in their prime wouldn't have made that joke. Or there's a lot of characters that literally just feel like Simpsons characters.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Like one of the playable characters is basically just Krusty the Clown. And
oh my gosh. Yep.
Like even sounds similar.
Kind of just relying on old tropes, on old muscle memory for humor. Yeah,
there's a lot of really cool stuff. And there's an in-game hint system, which is really helpful because some of the puzzles are a little obtuse. And it takes place in the 80s, so there's some puzzle solutions that are like, oh, I wasn't a grown adult in the 80s, and I didn't even exist in the 80s. So I like, even if I was a child in the 80s, I wouldn't know the solutions to this because I don't remember how banking and checks worked that before computers and the internet.
Wow, this guy really is showing his age. He's like, listen, I'm going to make the most of the fact that I'm an old man.
Yeah.
And I'm going to weave it into the game design. That's really interesting.
But yeah, it's a really cool game. It has some really awesome voice acting too.
Oh, it's voice acted. Interesting.
Yeah, it's a talkie.
I guess the later Monkey stuff was.
The old adventure game parlance.
Yeah. Because you're a big adventure game fan, right?
Yeah. I also played through. I had played it ages ago, but I'd played through Indiana Jones and the Fate of Atlantis, which another Mercado Bros favorite. But that game's still awesome. And that's from like 1991 or something. It's really old.
Yeah, that's a genuine classic, like old. Back when the original Monkey Islands and the LucasArts era of adventure games.
Speaking of that, I need to play through Secret of Monkey Island again because it just turned 30.
Really?
And like
30?
The past weeks. Yeah, came out in 1990.
Dang. I guess so. Yeah. I only played the special edition of that when it was on Xbox Live Arcade. There are very few games that are funnier than that. If anyone wants a game with a good sense of humor, the original Monkey Island is a good place to go.
Well, speaking of, this is not music related in any way, shape, or form, but speaking of games with good sense of humor, have you ever played through the Stanley Parable?
I have. Did you just try it recently?
I just played it through. That's one of those that I also bought like 6 years ago, and was like, man, I there's no time at the present, So
right. Yep. No, there's plenty of time in the present, especially. Steam backlogs are finally being addressed this year. No, Stanley Parable I remember being awesome because it's basically like Portal without the puzzles.
Kinda, yeah.
First person, really interesting, clever writing and narration. But it really goes down that kind of story route of you trying to like figure out what's going on in this strange place you find yourself in.
Yeah, and the whole idea of it is that like it's this, the world is, everything around you is being narrated, and you can listen to exactly what the narrator is saying, or you can try to go against it, and the narrator will like see what you're doing and like try to, like, if you follow exactly what he says, then the game will be one thing, but you can like deviate in different weird ways, and there's all kinds of wacky hidden stuff in it too, which is really neat.
I'm sure I didn't find all of it, but there are a bunch of different endings, and it plays around with like, it's one of those games that feels like it's watching what you're doing and reacting to it, which makes it feel very interactive in a sense that a lot of games don't. It doesn't take very long to play either, so also nice.
Yeah, no, I feel like I played through almost all of the endings that you could get in it, and I only played it for 2 hours, so.
Yep. One of the coolest things I played this year was the, and man, we're getting really far from soundtracks, but hey, this is the lockdown episode.
Yeah.
This is whatever we spent our lockdown on. The Microsoft Flight Simulator that came out. Did you touch that at all?
No, not at all, but I saw Bill talking about it.
It's so cool. I mean, I'm not a plane nerd, so I basically had to learn how a plane works to do this. But it's really neat. Like, talk about how far technology has come. It's of course I had to do the thing where I'm like, all right, so they've laid GPS data all over the real world. I got to fly over my house and fly over the area I live. And yeah, it's just about as impressive as you'd expect. We now have a fully realized globe that we can go to in a video game. So I don't know, the next Grand Theft Auto, I guess, just has to up its game.
Yeah.
But that was a really cool experience. But yeah, the soundtrack literally consists of like one generic sounding like public domain music menu song that plays the entire time the game is downloading and installing. And even if you alt tab out of it, the music will still play on your computer.
Good.
So you get to learn that song really darn well while you're waiting for like 20 hours for the game to install. So yeah, maybe not best soundtrack, but most soundtrack. 2020. We'll go to that. Oh man, I'm looking at my list and realizing how many games I've played this year.
Yeah, I know. I was looking back through too, and I was like, oh yeah, no, that's a good, because at first I looked at it and I was like, that doesn't seem as many, and then I turned off games that I had uninstalled because I beat them, and then it opened up a lot. Yeah. One of those is Guacamelee II.
Cool.
I love the original Guacamelee so much. It's one of my favorite like modern Metroidvanias. And Guacamelee 2 is just more Guacamelee. It's great. It's a ton of fun. And it has an amazing soundtrack as well. And it's cool. It actually has a lot of because the music's very like mariachi Mexican kind of music,
right?
Like, and there's even some cool like salsa and samba kind of music mixed in there too. But one of the main performers on it is actually the MES, the Mariachi Entertainment System, the guys that are on YouTube do like mariachi covers of game music.
Were they the guys that were at MagFest?
They were at MagFest this past year.
Yes.
And they were incredible there too.
Right. I remember walking around the halls and everyone just being like, "Did you see the mariachi band?" And I'm like, "What?"
Yeah,
that seems. And I'm like, "I'm at MagFest. Anything is possible." Mm-hmm. And sure enough,
but they're amazing. And they're they also had David Wise perform with them on a song, which was cool.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, that's very cool. Oh, speaking of David Wise, that reminds me of another game that one of my favorite soundtracks I heard this year, which is Ukulele in the Impossible Lair.
Oh, cool.
Just did the episode on that with the composers, and that was a delight getting to talk to them and how Dave kind of helped them capture the Donkey Kong Country feel. I don't know if you've listened to the soundtrack at all.
Not at all.
But I think they did a pretty darn impressive job of carrying that legacy forward and also breathing some life into it. It's a really good soundtrack, and honestly a really, really fun game. Like, I did not expect to like it as much as I did, since I never even played the original Ukulele. But it's a great platformer. Like, if anyone's looking for a good 2D platform to play.
I feel like I heard people say that they felt it was better than the original Ukulele.
It's a whole different gameplay style. Instead of going Banjo-Kazooie, they're going side-scrolling Donkey Kong Country style. And what about you? Anything else?
I'm gonna open up the Epic Game Store, because
there you go.
There's a lot of free games that I gave a shot.
Do you mostly play on PC at this point?
Yeah, I do. PC and Switch.
Yep. So that's an interesting thing. The new consoles are coming out today. Xbox
that's right.
Was launched today.
Yeah, I saw some people posted that they got their consoles today. So.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any plans, or are you gonna stay to PC Switch?
For the time being, I'm gonna stay. I would at some point like to get a PS5, just because there's a lot of there's a lot of PS4 games I'd kind of like to catch up on, and also my buddy Carlos at Heroes 3 is a big PlayStation guy, and so it'd be cool to play some online stuff with him.
Oh, that would be neat. Yeah. Just don't play fighting games.
Yeah, well, that's what I want to do, is I want to play fighting games with him, because I don't want to get completely bodied every MagFest. So
that's a fair point, actually. He's got to train you and have your your fighting movie training montage scene.
Yeah.
Teaches you how to shoot a fireball. Yeah. I don't know Okay, so we do have a plan, which is that we want to get a Xbox Series X, because we really like to play games together, Steven and I, on the TV in the living room. But hooking up a PC to that, it feels like something will always go wrong. Just there will always be some sort of technical difficulty. So we've ended up playing a lot on Xbox One, especially with Game Pass. But our current Xbox One was a hand-me-down from a friend that is the original. The disk drive almost doesn't work, and the HDMI port is loose. So, it is hanging on by its last thread. So we're very much looking forward to upgrading, multiple generations into the Xbox Series X, but it's not anywhere. We're going to be waiting a while, I think. It is in very high demand right now. So that's our current plan. But what have you found on the Epic Store? Anything popping up there?
I played Super Hot this year as well. That's another classic from a couple years ago.
Yep.
That game rules. I can't play it for more than 20 minutes. Otherwise, I literally get motion sickness headaches, because it's a game where you whip around constantly, and
I trust you're not doing it in VR, are you?
I did play it in VR, because Super Hot VR is basically a different game, just the same idea.
Gotcha.
Because in Super Hot VR, I have a buddy that has VR, and Super Hot VR is you stand in one place, and that also gave me a motion sickness headache, but it was cool enough that it was worth it. So
yeah. Totally. Yeah, Steven played it in VR this year, which he said was a pretty cool experience. But
actually, speaking of VR games that came out this year, did y'all play Squadrons, Star Wars Squadrons?
I wanted to ask you about that. I have not played it. What do you think?
I wish I could tell you because
no.
I bought it whenever it came out and it just didn't work.
Seriously?
I had, every time I tried to start it up, it would load up the game and it would do like this like opening little scene that was going to then lead to the character creator. And then after it finished its little thing, it would just not work. It would just go to black and just wouldn't work. So I refunded it, and that's whenever that's when I bought Hades. Actually, it was with the refund.
Nice. I remember them promising that this game was going back to the old style of PC games back from the 90s. I didn't expect them to emulate it so carefully that it also doesn't work.
That is, that harkens back to the PC games of yore.
It really does. Remember when you would just buy a game and it's like, there's like a 60% chance that this is not going to install properly.
Yeah. You're going to have to dig through decade-old forum posts to try to...
Yes.
That's the worst. Whenever you find a person that like had the same exact problem with you to the T and no one responded to them.
No one responded, or someone gives one response and it's like, worked great. And then you try it and you're like, nope.
No, it didn't. Well,
just run it in compatibility mode for Windows Vista and it'll run. Oh man. And I was like, very much PC gaming was like trying to run games on these bad laptops that my parents owned because it's all we would use to like browse the internet. So I was never playing on a PC that like had a graphics card or anything. It was always just like Intel chips that were baked into the laptop. And there was just, I remember it was mind blowing when I discovered Steam and actually built my own desktop, I don't know, around 2010-ish, and being like, oh, wait, PC gaming can actually be super convenient. This is weird.
Yeah.
And I feel there was like that decade where PC games became the more convenient way to play.
Oh, yeah.
games.
No, it's changed a lot since because I started college in 2009 and it's changed.
Right.
Like that was, I had a good friend that I'm still actually, it's one of the guys I play Rainbow Six Siege with. But he was super into PC gaming and I always like kind of liked it, but I wasn't too, I was a big Nintendo guy in high school. And whenever he is like, oh yeah, PC gaming, and he like taught me how to build a computer and everything, and that was like when Steam was first starting to take off, so things were still pretty janky, but it just got better and better and better. Yeah.
Until now, you really don't need a console if you have a decent PC. So I feel like Game Pass has definitely been bringing the consoles back up in terms of like being able to play games affordably. For a while, it's like Steam sales are the way to go if you want to be able to play games on a budget.
Although you can do Game Pass on PC too. You have to jump through some hoops, but you can.
I've done that. That's how I played Flight Simulator and didn't have to pay $60. But yeah, you're right. You can. So I don't know. It's kind of becoming a best of both worlds. That's something I really, really appreciate about the direction Microsoft is taking, is how they are. They're making things so convenient on both PC and console, and they don't see a need to create artificial divides there. And I think that's a really smart way to go. So good on you, Microsoft. Well done.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Other games I played. Hitman 2. Hitman games are so great. Have you played those at all?
Oh yeah, no, that's actually one of them I played was Hitman 2, the older ones. Oh yeah, no, those are always really cool, and I love that the more recent Hitman games are basically the same as the old ones, just more fleshed out. Like it did take some weird left turn. It's still the same, like elaborate, creating like elaborate ways of people getting killed and disguises and stuff.
Yep, I remember growing up, I would see like ads for the Hitman games, and I would just assume they were, I don't know, just another shooter out there. I did not realize how creative they are and the weird sense of humor they have. Like the sense of the dark quirkiness just makes them, it's so much fun to play because your character is a stone cold killer who dresses up in a sports mascot flamingo costume and keeps a complete straight face while he murders someone with a wrench. And it's that juxtaposition without ever going into like outright comedy that makes it really, really fun to play. So had a lot of fun with that. I mean, those games, you can just play like one level of it and just get lost in the world that they set up for hours, because they just put so much thinking detail
intricate
into every little, and it feels like you're actually in a real place. So that was a lot of fun, man. So many games. An interesting thing I did this year, I got really curious to learn about kind of the history of RPGs, especially how kind of I was noticing how different Western RPGs are from Japanese RPGs. So I went back and read up on a lot of the history of them and played a bunch of like the original RPGs. So like Ultima, Wizardry,
cool.
The original Dragon Quest, kind of created a timeline and went through a bunch of them. And that was a really interesting experience as someone who didn't start playing RPGs until fairly late in their life cycle. It was so fascinating to see how many of the ideas came from just these few seminal early games. So that was a really fun experience, and you can find them pretty easily now on like GOG and that sort of stuff and around PC. But man, the Ultimate games are dorky. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, no, I think I talked to you about this because I watched through that documentary series High Score.
That's right.
And one of the episodes has Richard Gere in it, and I was like, oh yeah, gosh, I haven't seen Richard Gere being dorky in a hot second.
He's so great. He is, yes. Learning about his history and how he would just sitting in his room or his basement or whatever, reading Lord of the Rings and saying, I should just make my own version of this. And he just did with reckless abandon and started selling his game on floppy disks with handwritten notes to people at conventions. And it's like, how far games have come within like one generation. It's kind of insane, actually. Like now they're these massive multimedia empires, but not so with Ultima.
Yeah. I think he's doing fine. But
oh yeah. No, he did fine. He got bought by EA or whatever, I think, for a while. But it's fun to look back at the origins of all that stuff, and then Japan really got it started with Dragon Quest. I knew Dragon Quest was big. I did not realize how big Dragon Quest was.
Insane how big it is. You're talking about games you wouldn't expect having big orchestras. That's
right.
It's weird. A lot of the Dragon Quest games, the games themselves don't have orchestras, but there is an album of the music for literally every single one, going back into the 80s. Like you can find albums from the 80s of like Dragon Quest II.
Yeah, it's bizarre. And then I remember like Dragon Quest VIII, I played that on the PS2 and it has that fully orchestrated score. But only in the US version. The Japanese version has a MIDI score.
It does, and it sounds terrible.
That's so sad for them. I don't understand.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Maybe it like released and then they did the soundtrack and then the US release was later. I haven't learned the history. But yeah, it's such a funny series to me because I played several of, I would play like an hour of the first and then the second and then the third to kind of see how they changed. The answer is not very much. Like if you want a conservative series, Dragon Quest is your series. It is insane. It's the same people making it. It's the same ideas, just adding like one little idea each game. But like, I've almost never seen a more stable series than that one.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Okay, cool. I was making sure I remembered his name. But yeah, Koichi Sugiyama, he did the music for the original one, and he still does it now, even though he's almost 90.
He's almost 90. And then I think Yuji Horii is the creator. He's still making them. And I'm sure doing very well for himself there in Japan. But it's crazy.
You're talking about old school RPGs. One I actually literally just got today and played a little bit of. I had played it before, but I wanted to give another shot. Rogue, the original Rogue, came out on Steam not that long ago. It's only like $3.
That game
it's
good.
Awesome. Like it's legitimately still a ton of fun to play. Like you play as like a little smiley face and everything is letters and whatever, but it's a legitimately fun game to play.
There's a reason it spawned a genre.
Yeah, there's a reason that things are rogue-like. Because Rogue's great. It's a lot of fun to play.
Yes. It it's interesting because I was playing them basically in chronological order. So I'd play like Ultima and Wizardry, and I played Rogue, and I'm like, this game plays so much better than like anything else. Like the ideas aren't as ambitious, but they still work. Like it just its integrity as a fun, easy to understand, but incredibly deep game just holds up. Even though, like you said, you're playing with literally ASCII art. It's like as simple as you can get. But it's cool. Well, I'm glad it's on Steam. I didn't realize that.
Yeah. And actually, speaking of ASCII art, I didn't realize this because I played this. I played this in January and February, which might as well be a different year at this point.
Yes,
but did you ever play through Glittermitten Grove / Frog Fractions 2?
I played the original. I did not play 2.
Okay,
I need to. Though.
It's so good. You're talking about funny games. That game is hilarious. It's so weird.
Right.
Oh, I love it. I would love to meet the
creator.
The creator. I can't remember his name. It's like Jim.
Go back to Train Station at 8. He was like our second guest, I think.
Oh, cool.
So we do have an interview with him out there.
Cool.
So yeah.
The game's it's really funny. It's weird. It's really difficult in a lot of ways.
Yep.
But its whole art style is, I think it's like ZZT, I think is the game it's based on. Like the way that it looks.
Right.
That is the main game, but you first have to play a different game and get to a certain point where you can go to the real game because it's hidden within a different game. Oh, it's so good. I love it.
Yeah.
But it has a lot of cool music too, because there's like, the game is more or less a collection of mini games. That might be a spoiler.
Sure.
But a lot of the different music has a lot of the music within the game is by a bunch of different composers.
Oh, that's cool.
Actually, I'm gonna look it up because I think because I think a few of the people were actually pretty like somewhat popular guys. Yeah. Danny Baranowski did some music on it.
Oh, interesting.
Ryan Ike, who's done a lot of random games, does a bunch of stuff in it. Ben Prunty, who did, or Prunty, I don't know how you say it, but the guy that did FTL and the other game that the FTL guys made that looks like Advance Wars. Why can't I remember the name of it?
Oh, Wargroove?
Not Wargroove. Oh, sorry. Different game that looks like Advance Wars.
There's another... Into the Breach.
In the Breach, there you go.
Right.
He did some music as well for it. But yeah, it's actually pretty cool, and there's some really fun stuff in it.
Yeah, it's really interesting when games do that kind of like compilation soundtrack style like that. I remember, did you ever play the game Gunpoint by Tom Francis?
Yes, I did. I love Gunpoint.
He did a similar thing where he just basically posted on a forum or a website somewhere and said, "Hey, everyone, just send me your tracks and I'll pick the best and that'll be my soundtrack." And it's like, it's a cool way of doing it. A game I need to play that kind of did that style of soundtrack is Cadence of Hyrule. But that's just like, they got so many composers on that. And it sounds like a really, really cool soundtrack. So
yeah, Cadence of Hyrule is basically just it's almost an OC remix album.
Yeah, basically.
Just as a game.
For sure. Shoot, there was something else I was going to mention from this year. Let's see. I played Kirby's Dream Course for the first time.
What did you think?
The story behind that is I had never bothered booting up the SNES and NES games on the Switch. I did not realize how much was there when I actually did. I'm like, oh, this is actually a really cool system, and they have uploaded a ton of games here, and I did not realize that. I didn't realize how close we are to that beautiful future where Nintendo has all of their games available. They have the infrastructure. They just need to add the games. But yeah, so I played a few on that. And Kirby's Dream Course, I mean, it's Kirby music. It's going to sound like Kirby because Kirby always sounds like Kirby, and that's a good thing. But it's pretty fun. Like, as golf games go, it's definitely more entertaining than most golf games.
Also, talking about old soundtracks, I don't think I had ever played and beaten it, but it was another one of those.
Right.
Played it or listened to the soundtrack a whole bunch. Yeah. I played through Katamari Damacy Rerolled on Steam.
Yes.
And it's funny because obviously, it's Katamari, has amazing music. But I let my wife play it a little bit because I was like, I could see her being into it. And she got so into it that we actually bought it for her on the Switch so that she could play it on there and I could still do stuff on my computer.
That's cool. I'm glad she enjoyed it.
She loved it. Yeah. Actually, related to that, to Katamari, we also got Donut County. So it's a similar kind of.
Yep.
You gather up things. And it's a really funny game too.
Yep. I've been meaning to try that for a while. It looks pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the game. Steven and I decided to finally try. Steven has basically never played any Souls games. He played like a little of the original Demon Souls. So we played a bunch of Sekiro.
That's a harsh
and tried to learn that. And that was an interesting experience. Pretty cool. I will admit, when we realized we could just run past all of the enemies to get to the next boss fight, the tension level reduced a little bit on it. With the grappling hook, you have a lot of mobility in that game. But yeah, it was interesting. I realized that this is my weird controversial opinion out there, everyone, about video games. I don't like boss fights in video games, I've learned. They are very frustrating to me, and normally are going to be the things that make me put down a game. And I think it's growing up, it would always be the thing that frustrated me most in a game was a boss fight. But yeah, so that was the big lesson I learned out of Sekiro is, man, I don't like boss fights. And there are a lot of boss fights in Sekiro. And they are very hard.
That's what I should do is I should go back to, because I played a good bit of Dark Souls, but I never beat it. And I think there's enough resources out there now that I could probably take a look and figure out like what the best thing to do is, because that's one of those games that you can build your character into a corner where you just can't beat the game unless you're like crazy skilled, and you just won't know it.
Yeah, totally. I think that's something that it was a way that Sekiro makes it a little bit easier on the players, that you just have a pre-built character for the most part. Like there are some skill trees, but yeah, that's one of the intimidating things about like the Dark Souls games is not only is there a ton of flexibility, but they are very opaque about what the stats even do in the game. So the information in the game is almost like purposefully obtuse. But you're right. There's like a ton of info out there on the internet now. So if you wanted to learn how to do it, it's out there now. I played the original Zork. You ever play that?
Oh, cool. Yeah, I played Zork. Yeah.
Yeah. Went to the original Zork, the original adventure. Those games are still pretty darn fun.
Yeah, Zork actually is. Zork's pretty fun because it's just a text adventure, and text adventures, they're exactly the same as they were then. It's just typing. Yeah, they don't really age very much. They're still there. Yeah. Anything you're looking forward to on the horizon with the last month and a half we've got here? I guess game-wise, there's not really any big games I'm looking forward to playing.
Yeah.
Just I'm looking forward to playing back through and beating Hades, and hopefully, and after I do that, getting into some of the other stuff that it's in my backlog that I still haven't gotten around to.
Yeah.
So I still have some time.
Cool. Yeah. Have you ever considered going back and doing any more of your YouTube channel?
It's funny you say that, because I earlier in the year, I actually did create. I have, I think, 3 episodes that are actually done. I just need to put them. I need to do a couple of finishing touches and actually upload them. I really didn't want to upload them without having them having other videos to back it up. So it's not, they're 2 or 3 years before I post anything.
Right.
So I really am. I'm trying to go back through all of the big ones that I did for the OC Remix podcast and making them into videos. Oh yeah, that's perfect. So I really am hoping to get at least one of them up before the end of the year, and hopefully get a kind of a trend of them going. Yeah, it's a really cool channel, and if I remember correctly, how we first even got in contact with you, was that channel. It is the extra credits of video game music stuff. So thanks. Yeah, it's really neat. So I'm glad you're going back to that. Definitely let us know when you get those videos up. The other, actually, probably one of the biggest projects that I was working on this year, though, was I do a kind of like a what's the word, radio drama kind of thing.
Yep.
Based in the Star Trek universe called
Right.
Tapan's Theater on Subspace.
Okay.
You can find us at TTOS.cool, which is my
Dot
favorite.
cool. That's amazing.
Cool. Yeah. So yeah, TTOS.cool. I edit the audio for the podcast and do one of the voices. So it's been a ton of fun. I've been working with a lot, literally people from all over the world on it, which is really neat.
Cool.
So
nice. So you guys like still working on seasons actively?
We're taking a break right now because we just finished the second season, and we're gonna have more stuff announced pretty soon. But we're gonna hop back into it probably next February, I think, is what we decided. But we are working on scripts and everything, and we actually just got another editor, so it won't all be me. So that'll be
very
nice.
Cool. TTOS.cool.
TTOS.cool. And of course, check out Heroes 3 podcast if you care about kung fu movies at all.
Absolutely.
I have very disparate interests.
You really do. Kung fu movies, a audio drama about Star Trek parody, and video game music. I mean, it's kind of amazing that you were able to find a convention where all three of those things are talked about. But I think MagFest kind of checked the boxes.
It checks them off a lot more than you think.
I still remember the lunch. It was the last lunch we were having at MagFest like 4 years ago. And we were all about to get on our planes and leave. And you, Marty, and Carlos all started talking about kung fu movies. And the conversation just kept going and going and going. And I had no idea what you guys were talking about, but you were very passionate about it, all three of you. And by the end of that conversation, you guys were like, we need to do a podcast about this.
Yeah.
And it is amazing to me that years later, that podcast is still going on. And that is just like one of the testaments of the magic of MagFest and what comes out of that, that special space. So yeah, it's an amazing time. I look forward to next time we're all going to be back together there, hopefully not too far in the future. And thanks so much for chatting, Matthew. This is a lot of fun to just kind of do our little lockdown retrospective here.
Yeah, definitely.
Thanks so much for joining us, everyone. If you have any ideas of who we should interview or just want to chat about video game music, check out our Twitter page, @EveAtTheRoost. You can also find a link to our Discord channel on there. We'd love to see you there and say hi. But for now, have a great evening.